I sat on the old, worn-out couch, a piece of furniture that once held memories of laughter and late-night movies. Now it was just a reminder of a time when life was lighter and happier. The room around me felt heavy, filled with the weight of the past. Upstairs, my 4-year-old daughter, Anna, was fast asleep, her gentle breaths in stark contrast to the tension that had settled over our home. I glanced at the clock. It was past 11 p.m. Charles was late again, as had become his usual routine. The sound of the key turning in the lock finally broke the silence. I stood up, smoothing my shirt out of habit, though I wasn't sure why I still bothered. "Charles," I called out softly as he stepped inside, looking more like a stranger than the man I once knew. "You're late." He didn't look at me, just grunted, "Work." His voice, once warm and loving, now felt cold and distant. I tried to keep my tone casual, though a knot tightened in my chest. "Anna asked about you today. She wanted to know when Daddy would be home." He shrugged off his coat, hanging it carelessly on the rack. "Kids ask a lot of things. That doesn't mean we always have the answers." His indifference stung. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Maybe we could do something this weekend, just the three of us. Anna would love that." Charles scoffed, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "A family outing? With everything going on? Don't be naive, Betty." My hands trembled slightly as I spoke, trying to hold on to the conversation. This wasn't the Charles I married. "It's important, Charles. She needs her father." He walked to the fridge, pulling out a beer without even looking at me. "What she needs is a miracle, not me pretending to be a happy family at the park." I felt my eyes well up with tears. "She's your daughter, Charles. How can you be so cold?" He took a long drink from the bottle, his gaze fixed anywhere but on me. "I'm being realistic, Betty. This isn't the life I wanted. A sick child, a house that feels more like a hospital." I followed him into the kitchen, my voice rising with emotion. "And what about me? Do you think I enjoy watching our daughter suffer? Do you think this is the life I dreamed of?" Charles slammed the beer bottle on the counter, the sound echoing in the tense silence. "I don't know, Betty, I really don't, but I know I can't do this anymore." Anger surged through me. "You want to walk away from your child?" He finished the rest of his beer in one gulp. "I need space. I can't handle this suffocation." His words hit me like a punch in the gut. "Suffocation?" I echoed in disbelief. "Is that what your family is to you now?" He turned away, his shoulders tense. "It's not just that, Betty, it's everything. The constant hospital visits, the medical bills, the way everything revolves around Anna's illness. I didn't sign up for this." I stared at him, speechless. How had our love turned into this bitter reality? "So what's your plan, Charles? Leave us? Start over somewhere else?" He didn't respond, just walked past me, his footsteps heavy on the wooden floor. I stood there, a storm of emotions brewing inside me. Anger, sadness, and a deep sense of betrayal. Later that night, as I lay in bed, the space next to me cold and empty, I could hear the faint sound of Charles's TV from the other room. The divide between us had grown too wide to bridge, and I couldn't help but wonder if it ever could be crossed again. Once full of warmth and familiarity, the man I had married, the father of my child, now felt like a stranger sharing my roof. Our home, typically a haven of warmth, stood in stark contrast to the sterile, stark hospital room where Anna, our daughter, lay in a small bed, her tiny chest rising and falling steadily. Sitting by her side, I held her small hand, drawing strength from her peaceful slumber. Nurse Sharon entered the room, her face a mask of professional kindness. "How's our brave girl doing today, Betty?" she asked. I managed a weary smile. "She's a fighter, always has been." Sharon checked Anna's vitals with efficient, gentle movements. "She's in good hands here. The surgery team is one of the best," she reassured me. I nodded, my throat tight with fears I couldn't voice. "I know. I just wish Charles could be here more. She keeps asking for him." Sharon gave me a sympathetic look. "Fathers often find it hard to cope with these situations, but you're doing an amazing job." The weight of loneliness bore down on me. It's hard doing it alone, you know. He's just not the same anymore. As if on cue, Charles walked in, his presence less comforting than I had hoped. He glanced at Anna, then at me, his expression unreadable. "How is she?" he asked. "The same," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. He fiddled with his phone, avoiding eye contact. "I can't stay long, work's crazy." A flash of anger surged through me. "Work, right? Because that's what's important right now." Charles looked up, his eyes cold. "What do you want from me, Betty? To sit here and watch her sleep?" I bit back a retort, focusing instead on Anna. "She asked for you today, Charles. She misses her dad." He shrugged, his detachment forming a tangible barrier between us. "I'm here, aren't I?" Before I could respond, Anna stirred, her voice weak but clear. "Daddy?" Charles's face softened momentarily as he moved closer to her. "Hey, princess. Daddy's here." Anna smiled faintly, reaching out to him. "Stay with me, Daddy." The mix of hope and sorrow in my heart grew as Charles hesitated, and then sat on the edge of the bed. "I can't stay long, Anna. Daddy has to work." Her smile faded, an understanding far beyond the years in her eyes. "It's okay, Daddy. I love you." Charles forced a smile, patting her hand. "I love you too, kiddo." As he stood to leave, I felt a surge of resentment. "She needs you, Charles. We need you." He paused, his back to us. "I'm doing what I can, Betty." But his words rang hollow in the sterile room. I watched him leave, a familiar sense of abandonment settling over me. Anna's hand gripped mine, her small presence a reminder of the fight ahead of us. The room fell silent again, save for the beeping of the monitors. I leaned closer to Anna, whispering promises of better days, promises I wasn't sure I could keep. But in that moment, all I had was hope and the unwavering love for my daughter. The silence was broken by a call from my friend Marilyn, a local realtor. I sat in the dimly lit hospital cafeteria, clutching a lukewarm cup of coffee, my mind a whirlwind of betrayal and shock. Marilyn slid into the seat across from me, her expression a mix of concern and urgency. Charles was selling our house, our home. Anger and disbelief swirled within me, fueling a determination I hadn't felt in months. Under the dim lights of the hospital cafeteria, Marilyn, my longtime friend and a dedicated realtor, revealed the shocking news that shook me to the core. "Betty, I can't believe he's going this far, selling your house while you're anchored here with Anna." I inhaled sharply, my hands quivering as I struggled to calm myself. "Marilyn, please try to delay the sale. I need some time to figure this out." Her expression hardened with determination. "I'll do everything I can, Betty, but you need to know he's insisting on closing the sale quickly." I leaned in, my voice steady with newfound resolve. "He won't succeed without a fight. He thinks he can just erase our lives, start anew with her." Marilyn squeezed my hand in solidarity. "What's your plan, Betty?" The word plan echoed in my head, igniting a fire within me. For too long, I'd been passive, a spectator in my own life, overshadowed by Charles's growing indifference. No more. "I'm taking a stand," I declared. "First thing tomorrow, I'm meeting with a lawyer. We'll find a way to halt the sale." Encouragement lit up Marilyn's face. "That's the spirit. Fight for what's yours, Betty. I'm with you every step." I nodded, my spirit bolstered by her support. "I'll also need solid evidence, proof of his duplicity, any fraudulent dealings, anything that will strengthen our case." "We'll start with scrutinizing the sale details," Marilyn proposed. "I'll gather all the information I can on the buyer and any irregularities in the deal." I took a bitter sip of my coffee, its harshness mirroring the turmoil inside me. After all we've been through, I can't believe he's capable of this. To Anna. To me. Marilyn's hand tightened around mine, her voice filled with resolve. "He's a coward for underestimating your strength, Betty, and he'll soon realize his mistake." Rising from our seats, my determination solidified. "He'll regret this, Marilyn. He'll regret harming Anna and trying to steal our home. I'll see to that." Marilyn stood by me, fierce and unwavering. "Let's turn the tables on him, Betty. Let's show him he messed with the wrong woman." Concealed just outside the realtor's office, my heart raced as I eavesdropped on the meeting inside. Charles was there, smooth-talking the potential buyers with his usual charisma. His mistress's laughter echoed, carefree and unaware of the storm she was part of. I observed as Charles confidently presented the paperwork. "This house is a gem, an absolute steal at this price," he boasted. The interested couple, a pair eager yet cautious, nodded as they perused the documents. "Everything appears to be in order," the wife commented. Charles's mistress, decked in vibrant red lipstick, chuckled, leaning in close. "See, easy as pie," she murmured audibly. My anger flared, but I remained focused on the task at hand. This was about gathering damning evidence. The husband glanced up, inquiringly. "And the owner is on board with all this?" Charles's reply came swiftly, a lie so effortless it seemed almost truthful. "Absolutely, she's ready to move on, eager to sell quickly." My fists clenched at his blatant falsehood, my nails digging into my palms as I resisted the urge to storm in. Marilyn, ever the ally in my scheme, smoothly interjected, "If you're ready, we can finalize the sale right now." The couple exchanged a glance and nodded. "We can't pass this up." I watched in silent agony as they signed the documents, each stroke a strike against the life we had built. I remained stoic, aware that this was a moment for clear-headed action, not unchecked emotions. Charles's laughter echoed in the background, mingling with the clinking of glasses as he toasted to new beginnings with the buyers, his arm around his mistress. My entrance into the room was sudden, causing a ripple of shock and confusion among the guests. "Enjoying yourself, Charles?" My voice was calm, my presence bringing the celebration to an abrupt pause. His smile faltered. "Betty, what are you doing here?" His question hung in the air as I approached them with determined steps. "I'm here to stop you from making a monumental mistake," I stated firmly. His mistress rolled her eyes dismissively. "What are you talking about? The deal is done." I returned a smile, cold and devoid of any friendliness. "Is it now? Because I don't recall agreeing to sell my house." The buyers exchanged uneasy glances. "We were told everything was in order," the husband spoke, his voice laced with doubt. Charles attempted to regain control of the situation, stepping forward. "Betty, you're confused. This is for the best." I shook my head, resolute. "No, Charles. The only confusion here is yours if you think you can forge my signature and get away with it." Silence enveloped the room. Charles's complexion turned notably paler. "You can't prove anything," he blurted defensively. From my bag, I produced a set of documents. "Actually, I can, and I have. These are the real papers. What you have are forgeries." His mistress tugged at his arm, panic edging her voice. "Charles, what's she talking about? Tell me this isn't true." But Charles was speechless, his usual suave demeanor shattered. At that moment, the door swung open and 3 police officers entered. One of them addressed Charles directly. "Charles Johnson, you're under arrest for fraud and forgery." The color drained from his face as he looked at me, disbelief etching his features. "You called the cops?" "Yes, I did," I replied, my voice steady and unwavering. "You broke the law, Charles, and you tried to steal my home." As the officers handcuffed him, his mistress began to sob, her makeup running. The buyers, sensing the gravity of the situation, quickly gathered their belongings, eager to remove themselves from the unfolding drama. One officer turned to me. "We'll need your statement, ma'am." I nodded, feeling a surge of vindication. "Of course, officer." As they led Charles away, he threw a glance back at me, a mix of anger and regret in his eyes. But I felt no sympathy for him. He had made his choice, and now he was facing the consequences. Marilyn, witnessing the scene, smiled at me approvingly. I returned the smile and exited the office, feeling a significant burden lift from my shoulders. I had stood up for myself and Anna. This was just the beginning. After Charles's arrest, I found myself in the lawyer's office, surrounded by law books and the heavy scent of leather. Mr. Ronald, my attorney, was a no-nonsense man in his 50s, his face marked with lines of experience. He reviewed the file before him. "Betty, your husband's actions have opened up a significant can of worms. The fraud charge is serious." I sat across from him, my hands clasped tightly. "I know, Mr. Ronald, but I couldn't let him get away with it. Not after everything." He nodded, understanding in his gaze. "I respect that. Now, about the divorce and custody battle, you're in a strong position, but it won't be easy." I leaned forward, resolute. "I'm ready for it. I have to do this for Anna. She deserves a stable home." He shuffled some papers. "What about alimony and child support? Given Charles's likely incarceration, it's going to be complicated." I sighed, a mix of determination and sadness coloring my voice. The road ahead was daunting, but I was prepared to navigate it for the sake of my daughter. "Anna is my top concern, and I only want what's best for her. As for Charles, he made his own decisions." Mr. Ronald gave me a firm look, his face etched with seriousness. "Betty, you're a resilient woman. We'll ensure you and your daughter get the justice you deserve." Leaving his office, my phone rang. It was Charles. I hesitated but answered. "What do you want, Charles?" His voice, filled with urgency, reached me. "Betty, I know I've made mistakes, but please don't keep Anna away from me." I stopped walking, anger building inside. "Were you thinking of Anna when you tried to sell our house? When you were spending your days with someone else?" He was silent. "I lost my way, Betty, but I'm still her dad. I love her." Holding my phone tighter, I replied, "Love is more than just words, Charles. It's shown through actions. You've let us both down." His voice broke. "I'll do anything to fix this. Please." I shook my head, even though he couldn't see. "It's too late for that. You can see Anna, but only with supervised visits. That's final." He paused, then quietly accepted. The following days were a whirlwind. I spent most of my time making sure Anna felt loved and stable amid the turmoil. Her laughter soothed my broken heart. One afternoon, while Anna napped, Julie, my sister, called. "Hey, Betty, how are you coping?" Her voice always carried a blend of concern and strength. "I'm managing, Julie. It's tough, but I'm hanging in there." Julie was quiet for a moment. "I heard about Charles. I'm sorry, Betty, but I'm proud of you for standing your ground." I smiled weakly. "Thanks, Julie. It's hard, but Anna needs me now more than ever." Her tone softened. "And who's there for you, Betty?" Her question took me by surprise. Caught up in caring for Anna and the legal battle, I hadn't really considered my own needs. "I don't know, Julie. I haven't had the chance to think about myself." Julie's reply was firm. "You need to look after yourself, too. You can't pour from an empty cup." She was right. "I'll try, Julie. It's just all so overwhelming. You're not alone, remember that. I'm here for you always." The next day, I visited a therapist, Dr. Scott. His office was a welcoming space with gentle lighting and a comfy couch. He greeted me with a warm smile. "Betty, it's good to meet you. How can I help you today?" I took a deep breath and shared my worries and fears. "I just feel so lost, Dr. Scott. Everything I trusted has turned upside down." Dr. Scott nodded, his voice soft and understanding. "It's natural to feel this way after what you've experienced. It's essential to recognize that challenging times are just one chapter in the extensive narrative of your life, not the entirety of it." This notion struck a chord with me and sparked a period of gradual but meaningful changes as I began to rebuild my life. I found solidarity in a support group for single parents. Despite the initial nervousness of my first meeting, the sense of community was palpable as others shared their experiences. It was a relief to know I wasn't alone. The group leader welcomed me warmly, encouraging us to support and uplift each other. I shared my own experiences with the group. As I spoke, my voice was steady, yet charged with emotion. The group members offered me a look of empathy and understanding. Afterward, Abigail, one of the group members, came over to speak with me. "Your story is inspiring, Betty. You're stronger than you realize," she said. Her words buoyed my spirits, and I began to believe that maybe, just maybe, I could transform this challenging chapter into a tale of resilience and hope. Back at home, in the calm of an early morning, I sat reflecting on the tumultuous journey that had brought me to this moment of peace. The divorce was finalized. The documents sat on my coffee table, marking a new chapter of independence. The legal battle had been grueling. I had fought hard against my ex-husband Charles for a fair share of his assets to secure a stable future for our daughter Anna. The court had ruled in our favor, and Charles, found guilty of fraud, faced the consequences. His accomplice, caught in their schemes, was also penalized heavily. In court, watching Charles and his accomplice point fingers at each other was a surreal moment. There was no remorse, only blame. Yet, despite the chaos of the legal battles and emotional turmoil, there was a silver lining. Anna had recovered well from her surgery, and her vibrant laughter once again filled our home, bringing with it a warmth that had been absent for too long. As I sipped my morning coffee, I contemplated our future, a future I had fiercely fought for, one that now seemed bright with promise. Anna was my priority, my beacon of hope. We had come through a storm stronger than before. I looked at the photographs on the mantel, pictures of us at the park, at the zoo, our faces bright with smiles. These were not just images, they were symbols of our resilience and our capacity to find joy even in adversity. Just then, Anna burst into the room, her hair tousled, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Mommy, are we going to the park today?" she asked eagerly. My heart filled with love as I nodded. "Yes, sweetheart, we're going to have a great day." Her laughter rang through the room as she clapped her hands in delight. Watching her play, I realized that these moments of joy and recovery, was what truly mattered. The struggles, the pain, and the betrayal were behind us. Ahead lay a path filled with healing, laughter, and a new journey.
"Don't be so greedy," my husband snapped as he rifled through the stack of documents. "Wait, don't read those without permission," I protested, my voice trembling slightly. But my words fell on deaf ears. "Isn't it wonderful? Now we can live comfortably for the rest of our lives," my mother-in-law exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Bennett grinned broadly. "Oh, now I can finally quit my job. That old fool deserves my thanks." They were practically giddy, lost in a fantasy of luxury and indulgence. I stood there, bewildered by this bizarre turn of events, my mind racing to make sense of it all. But while they were busy celebrating, I was hatching a plan that would change everything. I am Scarlett Jensen, a 38-year-old housewife working alongside my husband. My parents were doctors who ran a well-reputed clinic in our hometown. As an only child, I was showered with love. After graduating from the School of Pharmacy, I secured a job at a major pharmaceutical company. Although my parents were disappointed I didn't become a doctor, they respected my decision. 10 years ago, my mother unexpectedly died in an accident, leaving me and my father devastated. During those difficult times, Bennett, then my boyfriend, supported me. We met through a mutual friend, and 2 years after my mother's passing, Bennett proposed. He was an ordinary salaryman in the food and beverage industry. Despite earning significantly more, I believed we could overcome any difficulty and be a happy couple. My father was overjoyed when I told him about our engagement. "I've heard how Bennett supported you, Scarlett. Thank you so much. Please continue to take care of her," he said. Facing my father, Bennett stood straight and promised, "I will make her happy." Standing next to Bennett, I was enveloped in feelings of happiness. The following week, we went to Bennett's family home to announce our marriage. His mother, with flashy makeup and divorced from Bennett's father, evaluated me rudely. "Marriage, huh? You're Bennett's choice, are you? Isn't she a plain choice for you? And she's older, right? Wouldn't a younger and prettier girl be better for you?" Bennett quickly retorted, "Mom, you know M Pharmaceuticals, right? Scarlett works there. Her father is a doctor and runs his practice." I expected Bennett to praise my character, but instead, he emphasized the financial advantages. Hearing this, his mother's expression changed to one of satisfaction. "Oh, Bennett, you should have told me such important things earlier. That changes everything. I happily approve of the marriage. Nice to meet you, Scarlett." "Thank you," I replied. After gaining approval for our marriage from his mother, Bennett was overjoyed. However, I couldn't shake off a sense of unease, despite things going smoothly and our decision to get married. When we were about to register our marriage, my father, a doctor and real estate investor, gifted me an apartment in a luxury building in New York City. I told Bennett, "Dad has given me this apartment as a wedding gift, but it's our new home. Let's live here happily and peacefully together." Bennett smiled happily, and thus our married life began. However, after getting married, I realized something unsettling. Bennett, who had lived with his parents until then, was almost incapable of doing household chores. He couldn't cook, didn't know how to use the washing machine, and showed no interest in learning. He would leave his garbage scattered around, not bothering to throw it away. While I wanted to diligently share household responsibilities, Bennett's careless attitude increased my dissatisfaction. In the first year of marriage, I took on all the household responsibilities despite some complaints, given that we were still in the honeymoon phase. But with the exhaustion from work and struggling to keep up with chores, I reached my limit in our second year, deciding to have a serious talk with Bennett about sharing household duties. I bravely expressed my dissatisfaction. To my dismay, Bennett responded without gratitude or reflection, saying, "I'm tired from work too. You're much better at chores than I am, right? It's better if you do them since I'm not good at it." Dismissed just like that, Bennett hardly helped with the chores, and I continued to bear the brunt of our household responsibilities. But that wasn't the only problem. After marrying Bennett, I discovered his mother also had some peculiar ideas. Bennett wasn't very interested in seasonal events, so I decided to send a quality scarf and carnations to his mother for Mother's Day. Despite choosing a nice scarf from a department store, his mother called me, sounding displeased. "What kind of scarf is this? It's not from a famous brand. It's absurd to send such a no-name item." I tried to explain its quality, but she wouldn't listen, insisting, "I want items from a very famous luxury brand." Stunned, I reported this to Bennett when he returned home, but instead of empathizing, he said, "What? It's just being nice. Just do as she said." Bennett didn't take my side, and from then on, we started giving her cash as she demanded. Moreover, by our 5th year of marriage, she began visiting our home frequently, always finding reasons to ask for money. Bennett, without any complaints, would always smile and give money to his mother. Even though I had a job, Bennett's income was limited and small, making our daily life just barely manageable. Desperation led me to dip into our savings to cut living expenses. Despite my frustrations, I knew Bennett cherished his mother, and she was an important person to me, having supported me during tough times. She's the mother of someone important to me, and with that thought, I endured. Now, in our 8th year of marriage, I continue to handle all the household chores and keep giving money to my mother-in-law. One day, during this routine, my father, whom I hadn't seen in a while, unexpectedly called me. The story he shared during our rare meeting was shockingly unexpected. He revealed that he was suffering from terminal cancer, and treatment was no longer possible. Overwhelmed with shock, tears spilled from my eyes. My father gently stroked my head, just as he did when I was a child, saying, "Scarlett, this is fate. Let's accept it quietly." I questioned, "Dad, why even you?" Thus my days became a juggling act of work, household duties, and now visits to my father's hospital. While work allowed some flexibility, managing the household was not easy. When I told Bennett I would be caring for my father, he showed no reaction or willingness to help. Bennett said flatly, "Well, it's tough with your father's sudden condition. Please do your best." He visited my father in the hospital only once. I was so preoccupied with my father's care that I had no time to spare for Bennett. If I had time to worry about Bennett, I wanted to prioritize my father. One day, as my father lay in his hospital bed, he suddenly asked me, "Scarlett, how is your marriage with Bennett going?" Caught off guard, I found myself thinking about Bennett's attitude at home and his mother's behavior. I couldn't answer properly. Seeing my hesitation, My father seemed to understand and spoke to me. Scarlett, you don't have to endure. Think about your happiness. Don't worry. You won't have any hardships after I'm gone. I couldn't hold back my tears and wept, and my father silently and firmly held my hand. 3 months later, the inevitable moment arrived. My father passed away quietly. Engulfed in immense sorrow, I started arranging the funeral. Bennett, however, showed no interest in my grief and didn't help with any preparations. Despite this, I was too busy with the funeral arrangements to pay much attention to Bennett. Many friends and acquaintances attended my father's funeral, making it a heartfelt farewell. Even the indifferent Bennett and his mother attended. The day after the funeral, I received a call from a lawyer about my father's inheritance. I arranged a meeting with the lawyer and listened to the explanation. The information was all new and quite surprising. After deducting taxes like inheritance tax, my father's estate amounted to over $2 million. He had not only earned income as a doctor, but also made real estate investments, leaving behind such a vast fortune, all of it to be inherited by me, his only daughter. Wrapped in surprise and gratitude, yet trembling at the thought of handling such a huge amount of money, I proceeded with the inheritance process. After returning home, I spread out the documents received from the lawyer on my desk, reading through them. Exhaustion overwhelmed me, and I ended up dozing off on the sofa for a short while. When I awoke, I heard the cheerful voices of Bennett and his mother from afar. "Huh, Bennett and mother too? When did you come?" I asked. Bennett approached me with a beaming smile, saying, "Yes, Scarlett, well done." "Huh? Why?" I asked, confused by his sudden excitement. I noticed the documents in Bennett's hand. They were the inheritance papers I had received from the lawyer. "Wait, don't just read those without asking," I exclaimed, shocked and angry. My mother-in-law, unconcerned, happily chimed in, "Wow, an inheritance of $2 million. Isn't that amazing? Now we can live comfortably for the rest of our lives." Confused, I couldn't understand why my mother-in-law suddenly said that. Then Bennett turned serious and continued, "By the way, about this $2 million, I decided that it will be split between me and my mom." It was right after my father's funeral. Having looked at the documents related to the inheritance I was supposed to receive without permission, Bennett said to me, "Scarlett, don't be too greedy," and added excitedly, "Oh, now I can finally quit my job. I have to thank the doddering old man." "Doddering old man? Are you talking about my dad?" I blurted out unintentionally. But Bennett ignored me and said, "Well, anyway, let's proceed with the inheritance process and get the money into our joint account as soon as possible." Ignoring my confusion over this sudden turn of events, Bennett and my mother-in-law were excitedly talking about buying a new car and shopping. At that moment, I couldn't hold back my emotions any longer. I was on the verge of exploding, being burdened with household chores, asked for money, and to top it off, they insulted my father. While holding back my anger, I replied with a forced smile, "Sure, use the money as you and my mother-in-law please, as you wish." Hearing this, my mother-in-law, seemingly satisfied, said cheerfully, "That's the spirit, Scarlett. Quick to agree. Now make sure you work hard and earn money. I don't want our savings to decrease, so work hard." I just nodded and pretended to listen to her selfish words. Afterward, Bennett and my mother-in-law began living as if they had lost their minds, consuming money lavishly. Bennett quickly quit his job and my mother-in-law practically moved in with us, staying at our house constantly. They would leave in the morning, returning with luxury brand items they had splurged on. "The 3-star restaurant we went to today wasn't as great as I expected," Bennett would complain. "Yes, it was a bit underwhelming for us, the sophisticated ones," his mother would reply. Meanwhile, they dumped all the housework on me as if I were a maid. Bennett seemed to think my father's inheritance would come through immediately. He carelessly withdrew money from our joint account, and my savings of $200,000 dwindled rapidly. When I protested their excessive spending, Bennett just laughed it off. "What are you talking about? Isn't $2 million coming soon? Then this kind of spending is no big deal." I warned him, "I will stop it soon." But Bennett completely ignored me. Then, a month later, Bennett and my mother-in-law suddenly left for a trip to Hawaii. I wasn't invited and was left alone at home. After seeing them off, I decided to take action. About a week later, while I was relaxing at home, I heard a loud knock on the door. Wondering what was happening, I glanced at the intercom monitor and saw Bennett and my mother-in-law, both dressed in aloha shirts, standing at the front door. "What do you want?" I asked calmly and coldly. Bennett yelled angrily, "What are you even talking about? Why won't the door open?" Seeing them confused as to why the door wouldn't open, I confidently answered through the intercom, "Well, I changed the locks on the door, so of course it won't open." "What? Why? Let's talk over this," my husband pleaded. "Calmly at the nearby cafe, please go ahead. I'll join you shortly," I suggested. After shouting in front of the entrance, seemingly realizing it was futile, Bennett and his mother soon headed to the cafe. Once I confirmed they had left, I made my way to the cafe. Arriving there, I saw my husband and his mother, who had arrived earlier, waiting in a state of fury. "Hey, what's this about? Did you change the locks? Hand over the new keys right now," Bennett demanded. "There's no need for me to give you the new keys. You both need to leave that house," I calmly told him and his mother, facing a visibly angry Bennett. I presented a piece of paper. It was a divorce petition I had already filled out. "Divorce? You're serious about divorcing me?" my husband asked, shocked. His mother exclaimed in bewilderment, "Scarlett, why has it come to this?" I spoke quietly to the two who were panicking and flustered. "By the way, you've been spending lavishly every day. Are you sure your finances are okay?" I inquired. "What money? Of course it's fine," Bennett retorted vehemently, spitting as he spoke. "Your father's inheritance is coming right there. Should still be over $60,000 in our joint account. Look, I'll show you right now. Here it is." Saying this, Bennett took out his smartphone and opened the banking app to check the account. At that moment, his expression changed abruptly. What? What's this? Why is the money gone?" "It was there just the other day," my husband stammered in confusion. Hearing Bennett's words, his mother also hurriedly looked at her phone, her face showing confusion. I revealed the truth to them as they were panicking, not understanding the situation. "Of course, it's gone. I'm divorcing you, so I moved that $60,000 to my account as part of the property division," I explained. "What? What do you mean?" Bennett's face turned to anger for a moment, but then he smirked as if remembering something. "Fine, I'll divorce you then. Transfer the inheritance you got from your dad right away. After all, property acquired during the marriage is split half and half in a divorce, right?" "Well, you might be misunderstanding something," I replied. "Why didn't you know the inheritance I received, even though it was during our marriage, doesn't count for property division?" I responded. There was a moment of silence between us. Then my husband and his mother's expressions changed drastically. Perhaps they truly believed they would receive part of my inheritance. I was just astonished and could only sigh in disbelief. "No, that can't be true. That's impossible," his mother said, her face turning red with a mix of denial and anger. "Please check for yourself," I said mockingly. Bennett started frantically searching on his smartphone. "It says here, property inherited by one spouse from a parent is considered separate property. Therefore, it's not subject to division and can't be split between the spouses," he uttered. What? Seriously?" His mother, too, looked at the screen in shock. Then Bennett approached me, pleading desperately, "Scarlett, please don't divorce me. I have no savings and no job. How am I supposed to live if you divorce me?" Faced with my husband's plea, I remained firm, knowing that it was time to move forward. I spoke to him clearly and firmly. "What are you talking about? Take responsibility for your actions. I will never forget how you both treated me. I'm divorcing you. I'll go to court if I have to." Intimidated by my fierce demeanor, which they had never seen before, Bennett and his mother shrunk back in fear, whimpering softly. Leaving the two of them dejected, I walked out of the cafe. Later on, Bennett and I were able to go through the divorce proceedings without any issues. The $60,000 I had moved from our joint account was recognized as part of the marital property division. Eventually, I managed to get Bennett and his mother out of my house. Bennett, having already squandered the money from the property division, found himself penniless. Furthermore, he was overwhelmed with bills from the overseas trip and other expenses he had paid for with his credit card, quickly sinking into debt. Bennett and his mother had to take on even more debt to make these payments, and they now live in a rundown apartment, working tirelessly every day to pay off their debts. The stark contrast to their former lavish lifestyle has been a huge shock for them. On the other hand, I sold a condo I used to share with Bennett. I then moved into the apartment that used to belong to my father. I continued to work as before, but with the inheritance I received from my father, I am living a comfortable life financially. With gratitude to my late father in my heart, I want to start anew and cherish my life ahead. I aim to protect my happiness and spend my days peacefully.